Hey there. Tonight we're stepping into the mud, blood, and brutal glory of the Napoleonic Wars. Forget comfy beds and hot showers. We're talking frost-bitten marches across Europe, cannon fire shaking the earth, and discipline so strict that falling asleep on guard duty could cost you your life. If harsh history like this fascinates you and makes you appreciate modern comforts, consider hitting like or subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I'm always amazed how many of you fall asleep to this kind of chaos. All right, grab your musket and tighten your boots, because once you're drafted into Napoleon's Grande Armée, survival is anything but guaranteed. Welcome to the early 1800s, and good luck. You're gonna need it. In the early 1800s, Europe was a cauldron of ambition and chaos, constantly shifting and changing. Right at the center of this storm was the French Imperial Army, known to many as the Grande Armée, led by the legendary Napoleon Bonaparte. This wasn't just any army. It was a masterfully crafted war machine, famous for its meticulous organization and iron-willed discipline. Against all odds, it grew into one of the most intimidating military forces of its era, inspiring both fear and admiration among its foes. The Grande Armée was as varied as the lands it marched across. It wasn't just filled with Frenchmen. It drew soldiers from allied and conquered regions all over Europe. Imagine a force made up of men from Italy's sun-drenched fields, Prussia's misty hills, and Austria's rugged mountains, all united under the grand vision of French imperial ambition. Together, these soldiers built a brotherhood that went beyond borders, driven by a common goal and a deep loyalty to their leader. What really set the Grande Armée apart was its incredible adaptability. Napoleon, a brilliant strategist, knew that to succeed, his army had to be able to navigate the diverse terrains of Europe, from the muddy fields of Flanders to the unforgiving cold of Russia. His troops were trained to move with speed and precision, using tactics that often left their enemies scrambling. Their battlefield formations were as grand as their strategies were bold, combining surprise, speed, and sheer force. At the heart of it all was Napoleon himself, a leader with unmatched vision and charisma. He wasn't just a commander. He was the living spirit of the army. His leadership allowed for quick decisions and unified action, often turning battles in France's favor. Napoleon's presence inspired his men as he led from the front, shared their hardships, and fueled their passion with rousing speeches. To his soldiers, he was both a brilliant tactician and a near-mythical figure, embodying their dreams of glory and conquest. As the Grande Armée traversed Europe, it faced not just physical obstacles, but also fierce opposition to Napoleon's grand designs. The soldiers braved harsh winters, shifting alliances, and the devastating cost of war. Yet their determination never wavered. Driven by a profound sense of duty and belief in their cause, they endured unimaginable struggles for the promise of victory and the glory of the empire. The legacy of the Grande Armée is forever etched in history, a testament to the ambitions of an era dominated by revolutionary ideas and visionary leaders. It was more than just an army. It was a symbol of national pride, a catalyst for change, and a force that reshaped Europe's very landscape. Even as it eventually faded, the Grande Armée left a lasting impact on military strategy and the psyche of nations, echoing its triumphs and trials as a reminder of a time when a vision as grand as Napoleon's could unite a diverse continent toward a common dream. Back in the early 1800s, a powerful change was brewing across France, reshaping its military in ways that would define the future. It was 1803, and Napoleon Bonaparte's ambitions were echoing through the land, sparking a transformation in the French army that was more than just shifting ranks. This was about building a modern, innovative military structure, perfectly suited for a nation on the brink of conquest. At the core of this change was the old military district system, a leftover from times that couldn't keep up with the new demands. Napoleon, with his sharp strategic mind, realized that a more agile and effective military was crucial for the country's strength and unity. So, he launched a daring overhaul, turning these outdated divisions into what became known as military divisions, or divisions militaires. These new divisions weren't just about battle readiness. They became key to the nation's administration, taking on roles well beyond the battlefield. These military divisions breathed life into garrisons that had long been silent. They weren't just centers of military power. They became recruitment hubs, drawing in eager young men who felt the call of duty deep in their souls. From various walks of life, these men donned the uniform, joining a force that promised not just adventure, but also a chance to serve their country in its hour of need. As these divisions grew, they took on the critical task of organizing the National Guard and local forces, ensuring towns and cities could quickly mobilize against any looming threats. The nation's survival seemed to depend on this new military structure, which filled the air with excitement and unity as communities stood together for a common cause. Within the stone walls of these districts, there was a lively hustle and bustle. The sound of boots on cobblestones mixed with the shouts of drill sergeants calling recruits to order. Each division became a reflection of French society, a melting pot of dreams and ambitions where the allure of glory and honor beckoned to those who dared. Here, camaraderie was born in the fires of training, as men from different regions learned to stand together for a shared purpose. Under the guidance of seasoned veterans, these soldiers weren't just preparing for battle. They were becoming the embodiment of a new era of French military strength. Through rigorous drills, strategic discussions, and shared meals, they found a profound sense of belonging, a feeling that they were part of something greater than themselves. These divisions weren't just administrative units. They were the backbone of a nation ready to make its mark on the world. With each passing day, the reorganization of 1803 laid the foundation for a military system that would be admired and emulated across Europe. The ripple effects of this transformation were felt far beyond France's borders, as other nations watched with a mix of envy and admiration. The French military model became a symbol of innovation, a beacon of strength and efficiency that set the standard for modern warfare. As the threat of war loomed ever closer, these revitalized divisions stood ready, a testament to Napoleon's vision and ambition. Fueled by the spirit of the revolution and a deep sense of duty, these soldiers were prepared to march into battle, believing fiercely in their nation's destiny. The stage was set for a series of conflicts that would not only test their courage, but also reshape the very landscape of Europe. all beginning with the seeds planted in that pivotal year of 1803. In the year 1814, Europe found itself at a turning point, with the air heavy from the echoes of change. The sound of Napoleon Bonaparte's abdication reverberated across the continent, leaving the once mighty French Empire in a state of upheaval. The army, a proud emblem of Napoleonic ambition and glory, underwent a transformation, re-emerging as the Royal Army, or Armée Royale. This wasn't just a switch in name. It signified a deep shift in identity. Soldiers who had once marched under the imperial eagle now bore the royal insignia, their banners a testament to a monarchy eager to reclaim its former splendor. As these soldiers slipped into their slightly altered uniforms, perhaps a touch more regal, yet still reminiscent of their past, they felt a new sense of duty, this time to a king rather than an emperor. The brotherhood forged in the heat of battle had to adapt to the nostalgia of a bygone era. The ranks were filled with men who had been through the fires of conflict, now facing the uncertainty of a changing political landscape. Each regiment carried with it the echoes of past victories, their hearts still beating with the pride of having once served an empire. But in 1815, the winds shifted once more. Napoleon, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, made his dramatic return. The world watched, stunned, as he re-entered France, his charisma drawing the nation to him once again. As he called upon the soldiers of the Royal Army, many felt an undeniable pull back to their former leader. The banners of the restored monarchy, though fresh and vibrant, couldn't compete with the powerful allure of the emperor who had once led them to glory. Caught in a whirlwind of loyalty and nostalgia, the army began to change. Almost the entire force, save for a loyal few of the Royal Guard, men who had once been the proud protectors of Napoleon's imperial dreams, rallied to his side. Soldiers once loyal to the crown now faced a moral dilemma that only those in the thick of war could fully understand. Calls to arms echoed across the land, stirring their souls and quickening their hearts. As the 1815 campaign unfolded, it turned into a chaotic and fervent struggle. Historians would later recount this tumultuous period not just as a disaster for France, but as a remarkable display of military resilience. With little time to prepare, the soldiers, driven by fierce loyalty and the adrenaline of looming battle, formed several field armies. They took to the battlefields with urgency, hearts pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. Against overwhelming odds, they secured multiple victories, their strategies born from instinct and shared experiences. Each clash testified to their training and camaraderie, the culmination of years spent honing skills in the crucible of war. Drums beat a relentless rhythm, and the air sizzled with musket fire and the cries of men defending their homeland. The camaraderie forged in battle was not extinguished. It blazed anew under the banner of a leader who had seemed lost to history. Though the campaign didn't end with Napoleon's envisioned triumph, it revealed something profound about the spirit of the French soldiers, their ability to adapt and rise from defeat, marching forward with determination, spoke volumes about their character. History would remember these moments not just as battles lost, but as a testament to the unyielding spirit of those who fought. In this whirlwind of loyalty and identity, the story of the Royal Army and its tumultuous shift back to Napoleon became etched into history, vibrant and alive with the essence of those who lived it. In the aftermath of Napoleon's second abdication, not everyone was ready to lay down their arms. There were still pockets of resistance in the army, like the Armée de l'Ouest battling an uprising in the Vendée, the Corps of Observation of the Alpes, and the steadfast Imperial Guard. Among them was Maréchal Louis-Nicolas Davout, the Minister of War, who retreated westward to rally with the newly formed Armée de la Loire. But as the curtain fell on the 100 Days, even this resolute force saw its end, disbanded alongside the rest of the army. What lingered were a few directors and soldiers with nowhere else to go, those too old to return to families they didn't have. King Louis XVI had a sweeping vision to cleanse France of its imperial past. His plan was to completely overhaul the army, building it anew on a regional foundation and erasing the spirit of the empire. This decision marked the final chapter of the Imperial Army, a force that once stood as a symbol of Napoleon's sprawling ambitions. At its peak, the heart of this military machine was the Grand Quartier Général, not just a headquarters but a crucible where the fate of nations was forged. Within its walls, the air thrummed with the urgency of war as soldiers and commanders moved with purpose, their whispers weaving the strategies that played out on Europe's grand stage. This monumental hub was intricately organized, with the Maison at its core, a sanctum for Napoleon's personal staff. These men were more than aides. They were his inner circle, chosen for their unwavering loyalty and sharp minds. It was here that the pulse of anticipation was palpable. As couriers darted in and out, each message carrying the weight of history, the Maison was the birthplace of Napoleon's imperial dreams, where visions were transformed into plans of action. Encircling this inner sanctum was the commanding general staff of the Grande Armée, a collective of brilliant minds, seasoned by countless battles. They meticulously crafted campaigns, poring over every detail from troop placements to supply routes. In rooms lit by flickering candles, maps sprawled across tables as officers leaned in, eyes keen and faces set with determination, charting the paths through challenging terrains and enemy lines. Beyond its strategic prowess, the Grand Quartier Général was a marvel of logistics. The General Commissary of Army Stores ensured the Grande Armée was well stocked and ready for the trials of war. Responsible for the vast network of supplies, this branch operated like a finely tuned machine, coordinating resources so troops had the essentials, food, ammunition, and more to sustain them. The air was thick with the scent of rations and the creak of heavily laden wagons, constant reminders of the ceaseless push toward another impending battle. Further enriching the headquarters were various ancillary staffs, each bringing unique expertise to the grand design. Diplomatic ties were handled by the Foreign Ministry's representatives, often a Secretary of State, who navigated the complex web of alliances and rivalries across Europe. Their presence added another layer of intrigue, as military tactics and diplomatic strategies intertwined in a delicate dance, each discussion charged with urgency. Adding their own might were the artillery and engineering commanders, independent forces within this grand hub. These were the architects of innovation, responsible for the heavy artillery that thundered against enemy defenses. Their skills in siege warfare and battlefield engineering reshaped the very ground of conflict. With blueprints spread before them and the sounds of tools clinking in the background, they crafted clever solutions to overpower obstacles, pushing the boundaries of military ingenuity. And then there was the Imperial Guard, an elite force that by 1812 had grown into an independent army. These troops embodied the essence of loyalty and valor, handpicked by the Emperor himself. Their presence at the headquarters was a source of pride, inspiring others with the reminder of what was at stake. Their uniforms gleamed with insignia of honor, and their disciplined ranks stood ready to march behind their emperor, hearts steeled for the trials ahead. Together, these divisions and staff created a rich tapestry of leadership, strategy, and logistics, all united under Napoleon's singular vision. The Grand Quartier Général was a living entity, alive with the hopes, fears, and ambitions of those within its walls. As the sun dipped and shadows stretched long, the glow of candlelight revealed the faces of those who knew they were part of something monumental. A grand empire teetering on the edge of history, where each decision would echo through time, shaping the destinies of entire nations. In the midst of the chaotic Napoleonic era, there rose a remarkable institution that would earn the respect of nations and steer the course of history: the Maison. This organization was charged with the daunting task of bringing Napoleon Bonaparte's grand plans to life, reflecting the brilliance and ambition of its leader. At his heart stood the Grand Marshal of the palace, a figure of immense authority, guiding the Maison with a keen eye and a strategic mind. His role was pivotal, requiring not just intelligence and cunning, but also an intimate understanding of the very heartbeat of the battlefield. Under his watchful eye, the Maison's hierarchy unfolded like a carefully crafted map, each position crucial to the overarching strategy. The Master of Horse was the next key figure, responsible for the cavalry and ensuring the steeds of the Grande Armée were not just mounts, but symbols of raw power and speed. Below them, a group of unattached generals awaited their orders, ready to adapt to the ever-changing demands of war. These were seasoned warriors, each with a rich history, poised to leap into action at a moment's notice. Within this elite circle were the aides de camp, most of them generals themselves, underscoring the significance of their roles. They were more than mere assistants. They were trusted confidants, capable of carrying their commander's will across battlefields, delivering messages that could change the tide of history. Alongside them was a large personal staff, a devoted group whose sole mission was to serve the emperor and safeguard his interests. Among them stood Roustam, Napoleon's senior bodyguard, a striking Mameluke whose presence was both formidable and reassuring, embodying the diverse tapestry of Napoleon's empire with his exotic attire and fierce loyalty. At the Maison's core was the cabinet, a secretarial team tasked with relaying orders and maintaining seamless communication between Napoleon, the Grande Armée, and the ministers of state. This was no simple feat. It demanded deft hands and sharp minds to ensure the emperor's directives were delivered with precision, for the stakes were the very fate of nations. The cabinet members worked tirelessly, their quills scratching furiously against parchment, capturing urgent commands that could send armies racing across continents. A critical component of this communication network was the Bureau Topographique, the topographical office, serving as the brain of Napoleon's military operations. The atmosphere here buzzed with purpose and urgency as officers huddled around the campaign map table. With colored pins marking troop movements, the map came alive, a dynamic portrait of the battlefield that evolved with each new piece of intelligence. The air was thick with the scent of ink and the murmur of hushed voices as they scrutinized enemy positions and plotted strategic advances. Keeping the bureau efficient were the carnets, detailed notebooks recording every crucial detail about each regiment in Napoleon's vast army. These were no ordinary logs. They were the Maison's lifeblood, updated daily and rewritten every 2 weeks to ensure accuracy. This meticulous work gave Napoleon a near-perfect overview of the battlefield, enabling him to make informed decisions that would guide his campaigns. Each entry revealed vital intelligence on enemy forces, their strengths, weaknesses, and movements, peeling back the layers of warfare in a methodical and profound way. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the bustling headquarters, one could almost feel the weight of history on the shoulders of those within the Maison. Every stroke of the pen, every pin placed on the map, marked a step toward either glory or defeat. The tension was tangible, yet amid the chaos, there was a rhythm, a cadence that resonated with the promise of conquest. Napoleon's vision was more than just a strategy. It was a rallying cry that echoed through the hearts of his men, urging them forward in their quest for greatness. In this realm of military strategy and grand dreams, the Maison stood as a beacon of ingenuity and organization, reflecting its master's relentless drive. It was a place where loyalty met intellect, where the future was charted not just on maps, but in the very souls of those fighting for a cause greater than themselves. And as each day dawned, the Maison continued to pulse with life, a testament to the enduring spirit of an empire at war. During the campaigns and battles of Napoleon, there was this fascinating setup he called his little headquarters. Imagine a compact, highly efficient field HQ, carefully assembled with staff members chosen for their specific roles. At its core was the Chief of Staff, and alongside him you'd find the Master of Horse, the Marshal of the Day, 2 aides-de-camp, 2 orderly officers, an equerry, a page carrying Napoleon's trusty telescope, a groom, and Roustam, not to mention a cavalry trooper who always had a folio of maps at the ready, as well as an interpreter. Leading the way, 2 orderly officers would take point, accompanied by a small cavalry escort, while 4 squadrons of the Guard cavalry followed about 1,000 yards behind. It was a mobile operation, with the Master of Horse ensuring that fresh horses were always ready at each level, down to the corps, so the little headquarters could keep moving no matter what. In the broader scene of Napoleonic warfare, the General Staff played a crucial role, even if it was fraught with inefficiencies. This was a time when the French military's vast machinery often got tangled in its own complexities. The corridors of the General Staff echoed with clashing egos and competing responsibilities, as officers vied for position under Napoleon's imposing shadow. Despite its essential nature, the General Staff sometimes lost its way, with certain duties neglected in the face of overwhelming tasks. At the center of this intricate system was the Chief of Staff, entrusted with the enormous task of executing the Emperor's orders. The office buzzed with urgency. Maps lay spread out on every surface, their edges dog-eared from use, and the air smelled of ink and parchment. Every day the Chief of Staff was in a relentless battle to turn Napoleon's bold visions into actionable plans. This role was steeped in pressure, with the weight of the nation and the fate of Europe, dependent on the decisions made within those walls. However, despite the enormity of his role, the Chief of Staff operated in a system firmly controlled by Napoleon. The Emperor was a brilliant, yet demanding leader whose presence was felt in every decision and strategy. The General Staff existed to serve his will, turning his grand strategies into detailed orders, ensuring they reached the farthest reaches of his vast army. The Chief of Staff managed two crucial offices, the Private Staff and the Cabinet of the Chief of Staff, each vital to the Napoleonic war effort. The Private Staff, composed of trusted aides and officers, worked tirelessly to issue Napoleon's orders on troop movements and military operations. They were the unseen heroes of the battlefield, ensuring the Emperor's intentions were heard amid the chaos of war. Their days moved to a relentless beat, with the sound of boots on stone floors mingling with the rustle of maps and fervent strategy discussions. Each order issued carried the weight of lives and the potential for victory or defeat. Meanwhile, the Cabinet of the Chief of Staff served as a nerve center, managing the flow of information between the front lines and command. Here, generals and seasoned veterans gathered, sharing insights, debating tactics, and weaving the complex logistics needed to support a moving army. The stakes were high, each decision potentially altering the course of history. In this whirlwind of activity, duties were sometimes overlooked, a testament to the overwhelming tasks they faced. With so many responsibilities, it was easy for some things to fall through the cracks. A forgotten flank, a mismanaged supply line, or a delayed message could mean the difference between victory and disaster. The disorganization within the General Staff wasn't just bureaucratic chaos. It reflected the challenging environment they operated in, under the unyielding expectations of Napoleon. Yet amidst these challenges, there was a sense of camaraderie among the staff. Officers, united by a common purpose, found comfort in each other's company, even as they navigated the tricky waters of military politics. They knew their collective efforts could pave the way to glory, and every late night spent over maps and every heated debate had the potential to shape the destiny of nations. In this intense environment, everyone in the General Staff knew they were part of something bigger. They were integral parts of a grand empire, driven to fulfill the ambitious vision of a man determined to etch his name into history. Despite the chaos and challenges, they remained steadfast, motivated by a desire to perform their duties with precision and honor, all while living in the shadow of a leader whose genius was as undeniable as his relentless pursuit of excellence. In the early 19th century, Europe was a whirlwind of change, with revolutions shaking the foundations of empires. In this chaotic scene, the Minister of War became a vital figure, a position loaded with responsibilities that could tip the balance of nations. Historian Ronald Pauly painted this role as more than just a title. It was a heavy mantle, intricately woven into the vast military affairs of the time. This position demanded a keen eye on personnel management, careful control of the ministerial budget, and the swift execution of the Emperor's strategic directives, maneuvering troops across the empire's sprawling borders. The minister's influence reached into the crucial departments of artillery and engineering, where innovation was key to maintaining military dominance, and even touched the somber task of overseeing prisoners of war. A duty fraught with ethical and logistical challenges. As dawn broke over the Ulm campaign's battlefield, Louis-Alexandre Berthier, the first to hold the Minister of War title, faced the harsh realities of war. With the fate of countless soldiers hinging on his decisions, Berthier found himself entrenched in the chaos, surrounded by the relentless sounds of cannon fire and clashing steel. Yet, even as he marched with his men, the wheels of war continued to turn back in Paris, needing a steady hand to steer them. In Berthier's absence, 3 resolute men stepped forward to keep the machinery of governance running smoothly. Antoine Denier-Père, a seasoned and resilient figure, took on the role of acting minister with a heart attuned to the empire's rhythm. He understood that leadership was not just a burden, but a sacred trust, feeling the hopes and fears of the soldiers as he tackled the complexities of military logistics. Meanwhile, Monsieur Gérard, as the Intendant General of the army, managed the critical task of troop movements within France's borders. His role was essential, ensuring the forces were well-armed, well-fed, and strategically placed to counter any threats. Amidst maps and reports, with a candlelight flickering over his furrowed brow, Gérard felt history's weight on his shoulders. Each maneuver he plotted was a crucial note in the grand symphony of war, capable of leading to victory or disaster. In another bustling office, Monsieur Michel Tabarrier, the Director General of the Personnel Department, worked tirelessly to keep the soldiers' morale and welfare intact. His office buzzed with activity, the scratch of quills mixing with the voices of clerks handling enlistments and promotions. Tabarrier approached his work with empathy, knowing each soldier was a person with a story, a life interwoven with the Empire's fate. He recognized that these men were not just numbers. They were fathers, brothers, and sons whose sacrifices would resonate through time. As the campaign pressed on, Denier-Père, Gérard, and Tabarrier didn't just fill the gap left by their absent leader. They embodied the resilience and commitment that defined military leadership of their era. Their teamwork and resolve kept the empire steady, even as the distant drums of war echoed. Each day brought fresh challenges, every decision a possible turning point in the Napoleonic War's unfolding saga. Through it all, they worked with dedication, knowing the fate of their country lay in their hands. In the heart of the empire, as the war's echoes reverberated, their legacy was being forged into history's pages. During the tumultuous times of the Napoleonic Wars, the battlefield was alive with the thunder of cannon fire and the relentless march of soldiers. Right at the core of Napoleon Bonaparte's strategy was the mighty Corps d'Armée. Picture this: a vast formation of between 15,000 to 70,000 men, not just a random gathering of troops, but the vital backbone of Napoleon's military might. Each corps was like a small army in itself, ready to strike with decisive force. Within these ranks, you'd find 2 or more infantry divisions. The tough, gritty core of the fighting force teamed with a cavalry division that brought speed and agility to the chaos of war. As dawn broke over the camps, the scene was one of organized urgency. Soldiers, clad in sharp uniforms with their insignias catching the morning sun, assembled in orderly lines, awaiting the call of their commanders. The infantry, veterans of countless battles, prepared to meet the enemy head-on. Meanwhile, the cavalry, perched on their swift horses, anxiously awaited the moment to charge. Every soldier shared a common purpose, the glory of serving under their revered emperor, Napoleon, whose very name struck both awe and dread across Europe. Yet the Corps d'Armée was more than just its immediate fighting power. It was a complex entity supported by crucial units that maintained its edge during battle. Engineering teams worked tirelessly to build bridges and fortifications, reshaping the terrain to their advantage. The logistics teams were equally impressive, ensuring a steady flow of supplies and ammunition, while the artillery reserves stood ready to unleash powerful barrages that would shake the enemy to their core. The sound of cannon wheels and the echo of gunfire were constant companions on the battlefield, rattling the nerves of those who dared to oppose them. Among these elements, the cavalry played a particularly dynamic role. With a centralized cavalry reserve in place, the Corps' cavalry was primarily composed of swift, light regiments. These seasoned riders acted as the army's eyes and ears, scouting ahead and harassing enemy flanks. Their mobile horse artillery, a formidable force, was ready to deliver a rapid volley of fire when needed. Unlike the heavier artillery in the Central Reserve, this nimble unit was integrated directly with the cavalry, allowing for quick responses to the ever-changing battle landscape. Leadership within the Corps d'Armée rested in the hands of a marshal, a leader of great experience and strategic genius. These commanders, deeply loyal to Napoleon and steeped in military tradition, skillfully navigated the complexities of war. With the support of a fully equipped staff, they managed everything from troop movements to maintaining critical lines of communication. Their command tents, filled with maps and strategic plans, were the nerve centers where decisions were made that could change the course of history. As battles raged on, the Corps d'Armée became more than just a military unit. It was a living, breathing tapestry of ambition and bravery, a relentless pursuit of victory. The bonds formed in the crucible of war, the shared dreams of triumph, and the sacrifices made for a greater cause, crafted a narrative beyond mere numbers and ranks. Each soldier, from the weary infantryman to the proud cavalry officer, played a role in this grand saga, their hearts beating in unison with a nation that looked to Napoleon for hope and leadership. In this world of chaos and valor, the Corps d'Armée stood firm, a testament to the innovative military strategies of its era. It was a formation that left an indelible mark on history, influencing not only the battles of the Napoleonic Wars, but also shaping the very nature of modern warfare. In the early 19th century, France stood at a critical juncture, teeming with ambition and an unyielding desire to assert its dominance across Europe. At the helm of this fervor was none other than Napoleon Bonaparte, a man whose dreams for the French Empire set hearts ablaze, stirring admiration in some and fear in others. To turn his grand vision into reality, Napoleon saw the need for a mighty military force, and so he embraced the groundbreaking idea, the levée en masse, a mass conscription that would forever alter the landscape of French society. The streets of Paris were alive with a peculiar mix of excitement and anxiety, the air buzzing with the whispers of change. Men between the ages of 18 and 40 found themselves swept up in the tide of history, obligated to register for military service. For these young men, the call to serve their country was both a mark of pride and a source of trepidation. Those aged 18 to 25, and later 30, were especially vulnerable to the draft, drawn into service each year as part of meticulously organized classes, bearing the weight of their nation's expectations upon their young shoulders. As the news of conscription echoed throughout the land, families huddled together, speaking in hushed tones about the reality that their sons and brothers might soon be sent to distant battlefields. The looming specter of war promised both glory and the grim shadow of loss. Young men with dreams still tender and lives yet to be fully lived faced the daunting prospect of leaving behind their familiar worlds for the chaos of conflict. The commitment was steep: 5 years of service, or as long as the campaign demanded. For many, the future was uncertain and fraught with danger, yet they donned their conscription as a badge of duty, answering the call of a nation that needed them. Napoleon's ambitions, however, stretched beyond the borders of France itself. Recognizing the necessity of a constant influx of troops, he turned his attention to the lands he had annexed and the satellite states he had subjugated. In these territories, the French conscription system was implemented with the same fervor as within France. The people of these newly acquired regions found themselves intricately woven into the fabric of the Grande Armée, their destinies now tied to the fate of the French Empire. Men who had once led quiet lives were suddenly thrust into the tumult of military service, shaped by the ideals of honor and duty that echoed across France. As the drumbeats of war reverberated through the streets, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Young men from far-flung provinces, some hailing from the gentle hills of Italy, others from the rugged terrains of the Netherlands, stood side by side, united by a newfound purpose. They wore their uniforms with pride, a testament to their allegiance to Napoleon and his vision for Europe. Each soldier carried the hopes of his family and the dreams of his homeland, ready to step into the unknown, driven by a mix of patriotism and the lure of adventure. Yet beneath the surface of this grand military machine lay the emotional strain of separation. Wives clutched their husbands' hands, children clung to their fathers' legs, and mothers wept softly, their tears falling like rain on the cobblestones. The tension of parting filled the air with a bitter-sweet taste. The promise of glory often came hand in hand with the harsh reality of sacrifice, as families faced the grim possibility of never seeing their loved ones again. In the heart of France and its annexed lands, the specter of war transformed not only men into soldiers, but families into communities united by shared hope and fear. As the Grande Armée prepared to march, it stood as a living testament to Napoleon's ambition, a formidable force propelled by the fervor of a nation and the determination of its people. The levée en masse had done more than just enlist soldiers. It had galvanized an entire generation, bringing together diverse regions under one banner, their lives forever altered by the call to serve. And so, with hearts racing and banners waving in the wind, the young men of France stepped into history, ready to etch their names into the annals of time, prepared to face whatever awaited them on the distant fields of battle. Conscripts, young men between the ages of 20 and 25, found themselves classified into 5 distinct groups, yet not everyone was destined to serve. Many avoided the draft due to medical exemptions, conditions like loss of sight or hearing, or even the loss of a limb. Some exemptions were surprisingly specific. Lacking teeth meant you couldn't tear open cartridges, and a missing thumb or index finger was equally disqualifying. In addition, certain professions, such as clergy, those registered for maritime service, and workers in arms factories, were also spared from conscription. But there was another way out: substitution. If you could find someone to take your place, you might escape the call to arms. However, this substitute had to meet strict criteria. They needed to be from the same department, adhere to conscription laws, be under the age of 30, stand at least 1.64 meters tall, and have a clean criminal record. Yet this wasn't a one-time deal. If your substitute deserted or was discharged within 6 months, the responsibility fell back on you to either find another substitute or step into the ranks yourself. The cost for this arrangement was a matter of negotiation, a mutual agreement reached between the conscript and his replacement. Back in 1740, there was a quiet yet powerful shift happening within the French military. The air was buzzing with new ideas that would soon transform how infantry warfare was fought. France embarked on a bold journey, reimagining its military strategy with an emphasis on speed and flexibility. This was the start of something revolutionary, a movement that would echo through the years as the nation sought to redefine combat. By the time 1749 rolled around, these ideas had taken shape. France established several new legions, each one a testament to the country's commitment to evolving the art of war. Among these was a standout team, the chasseurs à pied, or hunters on foot. These soldiers were more than just part of the army. They epitomized agility and cleverness, tasked with the crucial roles of scouting and gathering intelligence. Their mission was to navigate the tricky terrains of battlefields, providing vital information and safeguarding the larger forces. As time passed, the importance of these skilled infantrymen became crystal clear. In 1788, a key decision was made that would alter the fabric of the French military. The chasseurs à pied were separated from their mounted comrades, the chasseurs à cheval, or hunters on horses. This wasn't just a shuffle of logistics. It was an acknowledgement of the unique skills the foot soldiers brought to the fray. The army now boasted 12 distinct chasseur battalions, each one ready to serve with unyielding dedication. These chasseurs were more than soldiers. They were the army's eyes and ears, moving silently through the landscape, ever vigilant to the slightest change around them. Dressed in their unique uniforms, they embodied a spirit of adventure and alertness, traversing everything from dense forests to rugged hills, always prepared for the enemy's next move. Their training was intense, sharpening not only their physical abilities, but also their strategic thinking, allowing them to function as both advance and rear guards. Embarking on their missions, the chasseurs became masters of stealth, seamlessly blending into their surroundings while collecting intelligence that could change the course of battle. Their skill in navigating complex terrains enabled them to strike quickly and retreat before the enemy could respond. A dance of warfare demanding not just expertise, but a deep familiarity with the land. Each step carried the weight of their mission, knowing that their actions could tip the scales toward victory or defeat. The evolution of the chasseurs was a testament to the adaptability of the French military in response to ever-changing conflict landscapes. Each battalion became a crucial element in the grand machinery of the army, their efforts often unnoticed, yet profoundly impactful. They forged a legacy that would guide future generations, setting a benchmark for light infantry tactics that resonated across Europe. At the heart of this transformative era, the chasseurs à pied led a military revolution, their story becoming an integral part of France's rich history. As they moved through the ages, their spirit endured, symbolizing the power of innovation and the enduring human drive to adapt and prevail. Their legacy continued to echo through time, a tale of bravery, strategy, and the relentless quest for excellence on the battlefield. Back in the early 1800s, during the era of grand battles and sweeping military reforms, a new order was issued that would shape the composition of light infantry battalions. On March 14, 1803, a decree came down that each battalion was to include one carabinier, akin to a grenadier, 8 chasseurs, who played the role of fusiliers, and one voltigeur. The chasseurs, while similar in function to the fusiliers, were known for being shorter in stature, yet they were more agile and quick on their feet. This was a time when Napoleon Bonaparte, a military genius with a vision, was reshaping the art of war. His cavalry, a dazzling force of power and speed, was a testament to his strategic brilliance. At the top of this cavalry hierarchy were the heavy cavalry, the cuirassiers, who were a sight to behold in their shining breastplates that caught the sun's rays, making them appear almost otherworldly. These men were not just soldiers. They were the very essence of strength and resolve. Their mission was straightforward yet daunting, to charge directly into enemy lines with a ferocity that could dismantle even the toughest formations. Napoleon saw these heavy cavalry units as more than just individual fighters. He viewed them as a formidable entity when united. He organized them into divisions, keeping them ready within the larger structure of his reserve cavalry. This allowed him to deploy them at crucial moments, gathering them into dense, powerful masses that could storm the battlefield like a sudden tempest, taking the enemy by surprise. As the day wore on and shadows lengthened, the cuirassiers prepared for battle. The ground shook with the thunder of their horses, creating a rhythm that set hearts racing. Anticipation hung thick in the air as they stood ready, each rider aware of the legacy they were upholding, a legacy of courage and honor that would echo through history. When the command to move forward was given, it unleashed a surge of energy and determination. The cuirassiers launched themselves into the fray, a wave of metal and might, their swords catching the last light of day. The earth quaked beneath their charge, the air crackling with the intensity of their onslaught. In that moment, these warriors fought not just for themselves, but for the ideals of the revolution, for glory, for their homeland, and for the leader who had forged them into this incredible force. Under the watchful eye of their commander, the heavy cavalry became an indispensable part of Napoleon's grand strategy, a crucial tool in his quest for European dominance. Each charge was a daring gamble, but driven by loyalty and the promise of victory, the cuirassiers embraced the challenge, knowing their bravery could tip the scales of battle. Long after the dust of combat had settled, tales of these valiant horsemen echoed in stories shared across generations. They had carved out their place in the epic saga of the Napoleonic Wars, leaving behind a legacy of heroism that would shine brightly in the annals of military history. The cuirassiers, with their gallant spirit, would forever be remembered as the noble warriors of a new era, their deeds lighting up the darkened fields where bravery and sacrifice reigned supreme. In the swirling chaos of Napoleonic warfare, the dragoons emerged as a fascinating element of his cavalry, originally designed as mounted infantry. These versatile troops were like the Swiss Army knife of the battlefield, ready to spring into action with mobile firepower, securing those all-important strategic points or shoring up the flanks or engaging in skirmishes. But they weren't alone. They were part of a larger, awe-inspiring cavalry force that included the light regiments, chasseurs à cheval, hussars, and eventually the lancers known as chevaux légers lanciers. These regiments were the nimble, independent operators of the army, capable of launching a full-on charge, yet skilled in reconnaissance, riding enemy lines, and serving as both the army's vanguard and rear guard. They had the crucial role of protecting the flanks, maintaining communications, and most importantly, keeping the enemy guessing about the army's size and movements. In the grand spectacle of war, where nations' destinies were often decided, Napoleon's words rang true. God is on the side with the best artillery. He knew this well. After all, Napoleon had begun his military career as an artillery officer. His forces wielded a terrifying arsenal of cannons that formed the backbone of his military prowess. These weren't just weapons. They were instruments of sheer destruction, capable of changing the course of battle with a single, thunderous salvo. As dawn broke over the battlefields, the cannon fire rumbled like distant thunder, a harbinger of the chaos about to unfold. The French artillery was legendary, not just for its power, but for its precision and speed, honed through relentless training and innovative tactics. When the French army moved, the sight of their massed batteries, those Grandes batteries, was a testament to their overwhelming strength. The cannons stood in orderly lines, each gunner in his striking blue uniform, poised and ready. The air was thick with tension and expectation, as if the very ground held its breath before the storm. Then, with a command, a symphony of explosions erupted, smoke and debris filling the air. The earth itself seemed to shudder beneath the onslaught, as enemy formations faltered, their resolve crumbling under such a relentless attack. Napoleon's genius lay not only in his artillery's might, but in how he wielded it, much like a maestro leading an orchestra. He understood that to secure victory for his infantry and cavalry, he first had to break the enemy's spirit with the deafening roar of his cannons. The sound wasn't just noise. It was a psychological assault, sowing fear and doubt among enemy ranks. As the enemy staggered under the bombardment, French soldiers advanced with renewed courage, knowing their path had been cleared by their artillery. The speed at which Napoleon could maneuver his artillery was breathtaking. His gun crews were relentlessly trained, moving with a sense of urgency and precision that was unmatched. In the heat of battle, when lines wavered or the enemy pressed hard, these crews could reposition their cannons with astonishing agility, reinforcing defenses or delivering punishing blows to any breach in the enemy's ranks. It was a deadly dance, a seamless blend of strategy and firepower that turned the battlefield into a lethal ballet. Every cannonball fired carried the weight of ambition and a relentless drive for victory. Napoleon's artillery wasn't just a force of destruction. It was a cornerstone of his vision for a new Europe, dominated by the might of the French Empire. With each clash, each plume of smoke, the legacy of his artillery grew, leaving an indelible mark on history. Reflecting on the power of those French guns and their decisive impact on the battlefield, we're reminded of the lasting imprint they left on the art of war. The echoes of cannon fire, the sharp commands, and the swift efficiency of the crews all underscore that in the theater of war, victory often hinges on the mastery of logistics and the thunderous might of artillery. In the end, it was this deadly combination of power, training, and strategic brilliance that allowed Napoleon to etch his name into history, proving once more that in the chaos of battle, indeed, God sides with the best artillery. Napoleon's artillery, renowned for its dominance on the battlefield, owed much of its success to the innovations of General Jean-Baptiste de Gribeauval. His improvements transformed French cannons, making them lighter, faster, and easier to aim. With strengthened carriages and the introduction of standard calibers, these cannons became formidable tools of war. Typically, the French artillery consisted of 4-pounders, 8-pounders, 12-pounders, and 6-inch howitzers. As the Napoleonic Wars progressed, lighter calibers gave way to 6-pounders, refining their battlefield impact. The cannons, with their gleaming brass barrels, sat atop carriages painted olive green, a signature mark of their might. The French artillery was expertly organized, seamlessly integrating with infantry and cavalry units while retaining the flexibility to operate independently. Two main types formed the backbone of this force: the artillerie à pied, or foot artillery, and the artillerie à cheval, or horse artillery. These distinctions allowed for versatile deployment, adapting to the dynamic demands of warfare with remarkable precision. Amidst the chaos and thunder of battle, a lesser-known group of heroes quietly shaped the fate of empires. These were the military engineers, and among them, the pontonniers stood out as masters of their craft. While the cavalry charged and the infantry held the line, these engineers worked tirelessly, often in obscurity, to change the course of conflicts in ways that would only reveal themselves when most needed. Napoleon, ever the visionary, understood their worth. As his Grande Armée swept across Europe, the pontonniers became invaluable, constructing pontoon bridges that allowed his forces to cross rivers and other formidable barriers. Their creations were not just structures of wood and rope, but lifelines crucial to Napoleon's strategies. In the heat of battle, when time was of the essence and danger lurked at every turn, these bridges could tip the balance, giving Napoleon's troops the advantage they needed. Consider for a moment a scene where the sun dips low, casting its final golden light over a vast river. Soldiers stand poised, their hearts racing with anticipation. Nearby, the pontonniers labor with precision and urgency, knowing their task is vital. As water laps at their feet, the distant sound of enemy drums serves as a stark reminder of the stakes. Their skills were never more critical than during the harrowing retreat from Moscow in 1812. Cornered at the Berezina River, the Grande Armée faced destruction. Amidst the biting cold, with despair hanging in the air, the pontonniers stepped up. Despite the frigid winds and overwhelming odds, they set to work, crafting bridges to ensure a path to survival. As icy waters swirled below, these engineers worked tirelessly, their breath visible in the cold, mixing with the cries of soldiers and the wounded. Each plank laid, each knot tied, was a testament to their resolve and a beacon of hope. When the first troops crossed, the tension shattered like glass, and the rhythmic sound of boots on wood became a triumphant chorus against the backdrop of war. The bravery and ingenuity of the pontonniers turned a desperate situation into a chance for salvation. Their efforts were a testament to human spirit, showing that even in the darkest times, determination and skill can forge a path forward. As thousands crossed those hastily constructed bridges, the engineers stood proud, having turned despair into opportunity. In the grand narrative of Napoleon's campaigns, while the cavalry charged and the artillery roared, it was often these quiet engineers, the bridge builders, who played a crucial role. Their work might have been less celebrated, but it was vital, proving that in the symphony of war, every note, no matter how subtle, contributes to the unfolding drama. It wasn't just the battles that defined the campaigns, but the unwavering spirit and skilled hands of those who built the bridges, allowing hope to cross even the most daunting rivers of despair. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the camp with golden hues, a sense of anticipation filled the air. Soldiers bustled about, their faces a blend of steely resolve and underlying nerves, each preparing for the uncertainties of the coming day. Among these men, a group of skilled engineers known as the pontonniers quietly readied their unique craft. These were the unsung artisans of the battlefield, masters at bridging rivers and forging paths through the most treacherous landscapes. Though their deeds often went unheralded, overshadowed by the chaos of battle, their work was crucial. Without it, many advances would stall before they even began. Nearby, another group of specialists prepared for a different kind of challenge. These were the sappers, men trained to confront the daunting enemy fortifications that loomed over the landscape like ancient guardians. These walls had resisted countless sieges, withstood barrages of cannonballs, and turned back wave after wave of determined soldiers. Armed with their tools and an iron will, the sappers were tasked with the intricate dismantling of these strongholds. Yet surprisingly, their skills were not called upon as often as one might think. The reason lay in the hard lessons learned from years of warfare. Napoleon himself, a seasoned strategist, had gleaned a vital insight from his battles. Avoiding direct assaults on fortified positions often led to greater success. His early campaigns, particularly the grueling siege of Acre, had taught him that bypassing these strongholds could yield far better results than risking heavy losses in a frontal attack. This strategic shift reshaped the art of war, and as a result, the sappers found themselves assigned to other vital tasks. Instead of tearing down enemy walls, these adept craftsmen often turned their efforts to building pathways through challenging terrain, erecting defensive structures, and fortifying positions to shield their comrades. Their work, though less glamorous than storming a bastion, was absolutely essential. With every bridge they built and every trench they dug, they paved the way for their fellow soldiers, ensuring they could advance, retreat, or hold their ground as needed. As dusk settled over the camp, the glow of campfires revealed the faces of these laborers, some lined with the wisdom of experience, others youthful and eager, eyes alight with the thrill of the unknown. The camaraderie among them was palpable, forged in shared trials and triumphs. They swapped stories and laughter, momentarily setting aside the looming specter of conflict as they bonded over their common mission. Yet, in the quiet corners of their minds, an awareness lingered. Each man silently hoped that their skills would not be needed to breach a wall this time. They yearned for a swift victory that would allow them to return home, their labor behind the scenes enabling others to shine in the heat of battle. But they knew all too well the nature of war, that plans could change without warning, and the unexpected was always near. As stars began to twinkle in the night sky, the sappers continued their preparations, readying their tools and steeling their spirits. Their contributions might not be celebrated in history books, but to those who understood the true nature of warfare, their role was indispensable. In the grand narrative of military history, they were the quiet threads holding everything together, their efforts often unseen but always vital. As the night deepened, the camp settled into a tense but hopeful calm, each man aware that when the call came, they would rise to meet whatever challenges lay ahead, whether building new paths, dismantling obstacles, or standing firm against an unyielding enemy. In the late 18th century, as Europe found itself engulfed in the chaos of war, one man stood out with a vision that would change the face of battlefield medicine forever. Dominique Jean Larrey, who would one day rise to be the Surgeon General of the Imperial Guard, looked out over a landscape marked by both the bravery of soldiers and the immense suffering that followed each clash. He saw a world that needed something new, something revolutionary to ease the burden of war's toll on human lives. His inspiration came like a bolt of lightning, sparked by the swift movements of the flying artillery, those nimble horse-drawn cannons that darted across the battlefield, always ready to support and strike with precision. In this backdrop of turmoil, Larry imagined a vehicle that could keep pace with the quick-moving forces, a concept that would blend the agility of the artillery with the compassionate mission of saving lives. Thus, the ambulance volante, or flying ambulance, was born. These were not just transport wagons. They were a lifeline designed to brave the frontline chaos and offer immediate medical aid to the wounded, even as the roar of battle surged around them. Picture this scene. Amidst the smoke and echoes of cannon fire, the flying ambulances maneuvered deftly through the pandemonium. Each was manned by a dedicated team, united in their mission to save lives. At the center was a skilled doctor, a calm presence amid the storm, equipped to provide crucial first aid. Alongside him, a quartermaster ensured that supplies were always on hand, and a non-commissioned officer orchestrated their efforts with precision. Even a young drummer boy played his part, his small hands carrying vital bandages, his drum beats a steadying force amidst the chaos. But the true heart of the operation lay with the 24 infantrymen who served as stretcher-bearers. These brave individuals, driven by duty and a bond of brotherhood, raced onto the battlefield, their determination unshaken by the danger around them. Each time they lifted a fallen comrade, they carried more than just a wounded body. They carried a story of courage, a glimpse of a life interrupted by war, a reminder of families waiting anxiously at home. As the wounded were brought to the ambulances, the urgency only grew. Every second was precious in the fight against time, as the doctors and their teams worked with feverish intensity to stabilize injuries and perform initial treatments. Their efforts were a delicate dance on the edge of life and death, demanding all their skill and bravery. Larry's flying ambulances marked the dawn of a new era in military medicine. They not only transformed how battlefield injuries were treated, but also laid down a legacy that would echo through the ages, inspiring future generations to push the boundaries of medical response in times of conflict. His vision was one of compassion and innovation, a testament to the enduring human spirit that shines brightest even in the darkest times of war. In the world of military legends, Napoleon Bonaparte looms large, a name that conjures images of unmatched brilliance on the battlefield. He wasn't just a commander. He was like an artist, painting his strategies and tactics with the precision of a master at work. What set Napoleon apart was not just his charisma, but also his inventive approach to warfare. He took the age-old formations and tactics, which had dictated battles for centuries, and mixed them with the revolutionary ideas that arose from the stormy seas of the French Revolution. Napoleon drew inspiration from many sources, one of the most notable being Frederick the Great's oblique order, a tactical gem proven at the Battle of Leuthen. This tactic allowed a commander to strike the enemy's flank while keeping his forces strong, a technique Napoleon adopted and perfected. Moreover, he was inspired by the early levée en masse, where every able-bodied citizen was called to defend the nation, blending traditional military discipline with the raw energy of revolutionary fervor. This fusion created a new kind of warfare, one as fluid as it was formidable. His tactics were known for their adaptability. While many of his opponents clung to the rigid, linear tactics, lining their infantry to fire volleys in a contest of endurance, Napoleon rose above these constraints. His adversaries, stuck in their outdated strategies, would arrange their troops in neat lines, hoping to overpower or outflank their enemies. But this rigidity was their downfall, leaving them vulnerable to Napoleon's dynamic maneuvers. Crucially, Napoleon understood the psychological side of warfare. He knew that victory often lay not just in the clash of arms, but in the minds of his foes. Commanders who relied on the linear system focused heavily on protecting their flanks, sometimes neglecting their center or reserves. The traditional belief was that outflanking the enemy was the ultimate maneuver, often leading to surrender when faced with overwhelming threats from the sides. Napoleon, ever the shrewd strategist, exploited this mindset brilliantly. He often used feigned flank attacks to divert the enemy's focus, setting the stage for a decisive strike. This tactic shone during the Battle of Austerlitz, where he masterfully deceived his opponent. By tempting them with a vulnerable flank, he drew them into a trap, then unleashed his main force on their center. The enemy lines, once solid and confident, would shatter under the pressure, leaving them exposed to a swift and ruthless flank assault. At Lutzen, these themes played out intensely. Napoleon, with his sharp eye for opportunity, crafted a battle that solidified his status as a military innovator. He grasped the rhythm of combat, the pulse of the battlefield, and used this insight to keep his enemies off balance. Where others saw chaos, he saw opportunity. Where they hesitated, he acted with resolve. Central to Napoleon's strategy was his steadfast commitment to a strong reserve, represented by the legendary Imperial Guard. This elite force was not just a symbol of power, it was Napoleon's trump card, poised to deliver a decisive blow or turn the tide when needed. Their presence filled his army with confidence and an unspoken promise. Their leader always had a plan, a way to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. In the theater of war, where the stakes were immense, Napoleon's innovative tactics reshaped military engagements. He was a beacon of change, a visionary who dared to redefine warfare, blending old traditions with new ideas and forever altering the landscape of battle. His legacy endures, not only as a conqueror, but as a transformative figure in the art of war. In the early 19th century, the Grande Armée emerged as a beacon of revolutionary change across a continent steeped in tradition. Unlike the armies of the Ancien Régime, where officers often inherited their positions or bought their way in, Napoleon Bonaparte envisioned something different. He dreamed of a meritocracy, a formidable force where every soldier, no matter their humble beginnings, could rise through the ranks based on ability and valor alone. This was a radical shift, a promise that hard work and talent would be rewarded, reflecting Napoleon's own rise from modest origins to the pinnacle of power. The Grande Armée became a living testament to this ideal. Within its ranks, the unassuming private in his worn uniform, armed with nothing but determination, could one day find himself commanding battalions, perhaps even earning a place among the Empire's elite generals. This was not just a fanciful notion. It played out on Europe's battlefields. Soldiers from all walks of life were drawn to this new army. Over 140 foreigners from diverse nations and backgrounds achieved the rank of general, bringing their unique experiences and perspectives to enrich the French military. Promotion came swiftly for those who proved their mettle. A soldier's worth was measured not by family, wealth, or name, prestige, but by bravery in combat, strategic skill, and dedication to the cause. This system allowed capable individuals to ascend to high command in mere years, a stark contrast to other armies, where climbing the ranks could take decades, if it happened at all. It was said that even the lowliest private carried a marshal's baton in his knapsack, symbolizing the dreams and aspirations fueling their relentless spirit on the battlefield. In this unique hierarchy, becoming a Maréchal d'Empire, or Marshal of the Empire, was not just a rank. It was a prestigious personal honor for distinguished generals who proved themselves in battle. With this title came increased pay and privileges, reflecting the esteem these leaders enjoyed. The same was true for corps commanders, known as General de Corps d'Armée, and those who commanded entire armies, titled General en Chef. Each rank signified not just authority, but recognition of the contributions of individuals dedicated to France. As the sun set and cast long shadows over the encampments, the air buzzed with soldiers' energy preparing for the challenges ahead. Around campfires, tales of glory and valor were shared, and dreams of advancement floated like smoke into the evening sky. Amidst camaraderie and the sound of clinking swords, men from all walks of life forged bonds that transcended their origins. Each soldier, whether a seasoned veteran or an eager recruit, knew the path to greatness lay before them, lit by the flickering flames of ambition and hope. Napoleon's vision of a meritocratic army echoed through the ranks, inspiring fierce loyalty that drove them into battle, united in purpose and resolve. The Grande Armée became more than just a military force. It was a symbol of opportunity, a place where class and privilege boundaries blurred, and where individual courage shone brightly against a rapidly changing world. The spirit of the Grande Armée was alive and palpable, fueled by the dreams of each soldier who dared to aspire to greatness and the promise that, with grit and determination, they could shape their destinies on history's grand stage. If you made it this far, congrats, soldier. You survived one of the most unforgiving armies in history, at least in your imagination. If you enjoyed this brutal little time trip, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who thinks they could have handled the Napoleonic grind. And as always, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing this sleepy little history battalion stretch across the world. Sleep well, and may your dreams be cannon-free tonight.